Thank you for joining us once again on Gods, Demons, and Magic. This is your host, Sri Sachinandan Das, and we're exploring the Egyptian mysteries by Iamblichus, that ancient text dealing with all the various entities of the supernatural world, and especially with the gods and how they are brought forth in magic ritual and interacted with. And the Egyptian priest Abaman is explaining to the Greek philosopher Porphyry the details of all these manifestations. And so in our last episode, we discussed the gods and what it looks like when they appear within the ritual. And of course, the ritual, which may take the form of a drama of the pastimes or activities of that gods being performed with various symbols and things like that, they bring forth the gods. But it's not so much that the gods actually are brought down into our realm, but rather our consciousness is raised to the realm of the gods, and you're able to perceive them and have this mystical and mysterious vision which uplifts you and purifies you and sets you upon your life path and blesses you with the power to undertake all obstacles. And of course, the gods are kind of like the greatest thing that you can experience within these magic rituals. And their purpose is completely spiritual. They're meant to uplift you and raise your consciousness, and they're really imbued or saturated with the light of the One, or the good, or the glory of God, and they manifest that through themselves into you. They elevate you and they purify you, and that's really what their purpose is. But there are other types of entities that one can interact with through magic ritual. And the next classification we're going to discuss are the Archangels. Now, it's quite interesting because most of the things that Iamblichus or the Egyptian priest Abaman has been discussing here are either Greek or Egyptian. You know, you have the gods, and then you have the daemons, who are sort of supernatural beings that exist between the realm of the gods and the realm of men. And then you have mankind, who are, that's us. And we exist in an enlightened, purified state, or in an engrossed, materially confused state, which would be our state right now. And there's also half-gods, or demigods, who are the product of when gods mate with or have sexual relations with a human, then you'll have a half-god. And really their purpose in the divine plan is to sort of give guidance and inspiration to mankind through their activities. But what's interesting is that Abaman also includes different supernatural beings from other traditions, such as archangels and angels, which are, more of a Christian thing, or they could also be considered to be coming from Judaism, and also in Kabbalism, right? Deals a lot with angels. And oftentimes you'll see in Western ceremonial magic, which is derived from, in many ways, Kabbalah, or at least it includes elements of Kabbalah within it, you'll see that the archangels are called to protect the four directions, right? So even within Western magic, you'll see that these archangels are very, very important. And so therefore, Abaman is also including them. And obviously, these Egyptian priests have done a lot of experimentation, right? They've summoned just about anything and everything. And so they've also summoned angels and archangels and different lower entities as well, as we'll hear coming up. Entities that we would consider from a Western perspective to be full-blown demons. And so we'll talk about that too. And so it's kind of interesting to me that the Egyptians, they had a very broad-minded perspective, on their religion. Like they're willing to look and include even supernatural beings from Christianity and Judaism, etc. So imagine yourself an initiate into one of these mystical traditions, either Greek or Egyptian, and you're there surrounded by your fellow initiates. You're in this sacred place, perhaps in a grotto or in a temple, and you're reenacting the activities of this god, and you're displaying the archangels, and you're displaying the various symbols associated with that archangel, and you're pronouncing the various prayers associated with that archangel. And by doing so, you're sort of tuning into the energy of that archangel. And while doing that, the archangel can hear you, sort of hear you calling, and you're drawing its attention to you. And so in the midst of your play, say you're moving around and interacting, doing a dance or something like that, the archangel may appear. And Abaman mentions that there are swift movements commingled with the dramatic performances, meaning, say you have the players are moving around, and they're sort of moving in a circle, interacting with each other, or perhaps they're dancing around together. And then you'll see that this swift sort of like astral energy, this luminous light begins to manifest, and it's moving around with the actors. It's actually moving along with the drama. It's like they're participating. And so that's very fascinating, right? And it mentions that this luminosity, we can imagine it growing and growing, and it becomes very beautiful. And it's very admirable, as Abaman says. It makes you feel great reverence and just, awe, like, wow, look how beautiful this is. You see this incredible effulgence dancing with and moving around all of the players. And then it begins to become, very bright and very beautiful, so that everything just sort of like, stops. Everyone's watching and looking at them. Now, it's not quite as brilliant and overwhelming as the gods. As we heard, when the gods appear, you can't even breathe, right? But the effulgence, the light, the divine fire, as Abaman says, that emanates from the archangels, it's not quite as powerful. Obviously, they're not on quite the same level. And so in accordance with the magnitude of a supernatural being's dominion, then they'll manifest power and light and glory. So if it's a very great archangel, there may be a tremendous amount of light and glory, and it's very beautiful. And if you have a lower archangel who has a lower dominion, like he's not ruling over such a large aspect of nature, then his power, his glory will be somewhat less. And the archangels in general as a category are beneath the gods, and therefore they'll never be quite as overwhelming or tremendous as the gods. And just as the gods, when the gods manifest, they're unchanging, like they're not some flickering, smoky form, but they're actually standing there before you, and they're there until they eventually vanish, or until the ritual's over. So in the same way with the archangels, there he is, there's the angel Michael, or, whichever one is there, and he's just there, and he's standing before you, and he's not flickering or shape-shifting or anything like that. He's right there, and his form doesn't change or move. In fact, Abaman mentions that the general sort of mood of them is that they're representing authority and quietude, or like they have like a peaceful countenance. It's almost like they're representing divine, confident authority. So when the archangel appears, he's not like he's not moving around in a very sort of like, entertaining way or anything, just standing there in a very peaceful way, in a way which exudes a sense of confidence and responsibility and order, like he's holding everything in place, The archangel is a divine being in charge of a certain aspect of reality, and he holds order within that aspect of reality on behalf of, the divine, on behalf of God, or the absolute truth. And so when he appears, he really exudes that sense of order. And just as a king, like a very proud king, not a proud king, but a very like strong king who, when he's there, you feel safe. You feel like everything is going as it should be, everything's in control. Sort of divine order has been established. And because of that, there's a sense of peacefulness. There's a sense of, not like the peacefulness of the gods, which when the gods appear you feel tranquil because your consciousness has been uplifted. With the archangels, there's a sense of quiet and peacefulness because everything is in order. Everything is in harmony with the divine will. And it's awe-inspiring. You feel overwhelmed, but it's also very gentle. There's a feeling of like, you feel like you're, even though this is a very powerful being, which is sort of like controlling nature, still this being is very gentle and very kind and very sweet. And so almost like a mother, is handling you. And so even though the archangel appears in this powerful, awe-inspiring form, they're interacting with you in a way that you feel like you're being handled by the most gentle, loving mother. And just as the gods, when they appeared, they're overwhelming. So it's the same thing with the archangels. They do feel overwhelming, but not quite so intense as the gods. And the fire of the gods, of the divine fire, the effulgence of the gods, it was kind of shining out brilliantly like one sun, whereas the fire of the archangels, it's kind of more like the rays of light coming from like a laser, like they mentioned in the last episode, like in the club, you might have these kind of lasers which are shooting out like beams in all directions, like rays of light in all directions. So the archangels, it's kind of like that. Like you have, sometimes the sun can be seen like this too, but there's, hundreds if not thousands of rays of light shooting in all directions. Whereas with the gods, it's kind of just one uniform effulgence. And when you meet them, you feel exalted, you feel totally purified, and they're a beautiful vision. They're genuine, like they feel very just perfect, like what you're seeing is just absolute perfection. And according to Brahman, they're surpassingly luminous, so they're very effulgent and glowing, very beautiful beings. And when they appear, the angels come with them. They're archangels, but just as the gods are surrounded by other gods as well as angels, so similarly the archangels are surrounded by angels who are either coming before them, like the first thing you may see, you have all these beautiful lights kind of dancing around the drama, the divine drama being performed. First thing you maybe see is angels all over the place. Angels start to manifest, and then the archangel, this explosion of beauty and light comes, and the archangel is there. And standing with the archangel are many other angels, all standing around with that archangel, and they may be following after the archangel as well. So this is like if you have a king or a queen is walking, and their retinue is following behind them. So similarly, the angels will walk behind the archangel. And the effect of meeting with the archangel or having this experience is that, first of all, you're filled with a feeling of spiritual insight, and you feel very calmed and peaceful in the midst of their stable power. They're like a rock upon which creation sits, and they create order and stability. And because they create this sense of insight within you, they give you the perception of what is true. Now, it's not sort of like a divine truth, maybe like the gods might give you a perception of a divine spiritual truth, which is universal at all places and all times, but the archangel will clarify your mind in regards to a certain truth, some certain aspect of nature, some aspect of your life, some specific situation or matter that you're concerned about. Immediately in the presence of that archangel, you'll have this revelation, this is what I should do. Say, for example, a king is asking these priests, and perhaps this is how it happened. The pharaoh is asking the priests, we have the Hyksos, or there's some other invading army on the borders of our kingdom, and it's questionable whether we should actually invade or we should take a defensive position, or where we should take the defensive position. And he asks the priests, what should we do? Please, seek some form of divination. And so they may seek an archangel, right? Because a god, you wouldn't necessarily ask a god because they're trying to give you spiritual elevation. They're trying to elevate you in consciousness towards the one or towards God. Whereas the archangel will illuminate truth to you. They'll show you the truth of a situation and one particular situation. So you might have like the priest, he's really meditating on this question of the pharaoh, and he may even study the situation, like say, the priest will go heavily into this. He'll consult all the ministers, he'll consult the war ministers, he'll look at the whole, he'll have spies go out and look at the opposing army, he'll look at the desert in between, he'll look at all of the situations, the obstacles that may be there, the different environments they may or may not fight, the water, look at, what's the situation with water, what's the situation with supply lines, right? He'll gather as much information as he can and kind of digest it into a question, a certain picture in his mind that he holds there. And then he'll enter with the other priests into a sacred ritual. And through that ritual, they'll call forth, the presence of an archangel. And then while he and the priests are there in the presence of the archangel, he'll become completely illuminated as regards to that particular question. He'll totally see it all clearly. All of a sudden, it's like with this great, almost chaotic conflagration of information in his mind, the rising sun of the presence of this archangel just completely quiets and sets the whole vision in order. Because again, the archangel is that power of order within the universe, and it's pure order, it's clean order, right? It's illuminated order. And so therefore in their presence, the whole question becomes ordered. You're able to see everything in its proper position and then understand what it is to be done. What's the wise course of action? And so after having this experience, and I'm not sure, maybe the Egyptian priest could directly speak with the archangel and ask, but it seems to be more of like, this is the effect of just being in their association. And so, of course, with lower beings, it mentions coming up that the angels, the priest can actually go and approach them, and ones like daemons as well. But I'm not 100% sure, but it doesn't seem like archangels are gods that the priest actually interacts with them or comes up and says, "Hey, dude, got a question for you," or something like that. It's more like the priests just kind of stand there and bask in their glory, and then there's these spiritual effects of being in their association. Whereas lower supernatural beings, even exalted beings, they are more approachable. So the archangel, then you can imagine our priest, after the ritual concludes, then he has this clear perspective, and then he goes to the king and all his ministers and says, this is the revelation on that situation. So thank you very much for listening. If you found value in this, please like and subscribe. If you're listening on iTunes, please visit srisachinandana.com/iTunes and leave a positive review. Thank you again, and we hope you'll join us next time on Gods, Demons, and Magic.